January 24th, this is, no, I'll start over. This is January 24th, 2020. And regular board meeting and a work session at Centerville Community School District. We do have everybody here, so I will call the regular board meeting to order with a roll call.
Johnson. Here. Moore.
Here.
Mike Thomas.
Here.
Bob Thomas.
Here.
Shonda.
Here.
Berger.
Here.
Liskus.
Here. Are there any visitors here? If there are, we'd like to welcome you. And if there is, per our tradition, it is public forum time. If there is any comments that the public would like to bring to the attention of the board, we would entertain those comments at this time. Hearing none, we'll move on. Next order is to approve the agenda. We approve the agenda for the regular board meeting, which, as you can see there, there's going to be 2 items on there.
I move to approve the minute, the agenda.
Did we have a retraction out of that?
We're gonna pull one of the recommendations for hiring.
Okay.
And that recommendation, we just had some late developments. So, but I need to get it out here, so I'll make sure to tell you the right one. What was the name again? Haley Robbins.
Right.
That one would need to be pulled and not included.
And I approve the agenda with one, old person. But I mean,
Okay.
A second.
Thank you. So we have a motion, a second to approve the agenda. And when we get down to the employment contracts, we'll kind of remind ourselves of that one. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, there is no old business. We'll go to new business. The first thing is to approve the transportation lease. And did Tim leave? He was here.
He's went to the office. He's not on yet?
Okay.
Nope.
Probably not there yet.
Okay. So you want to talk us through the lease and we'll,
Well,
or we're going to wait for it.
plus, now, I think probably I'm gonna say something that isn't accurate if we don't wait for Jim.
we could just go out of order and do the next one.
Is that permissible to go on?
Sure.
Okay. So if that's allowable and agreeable to everybody by consent, we'll go on item B and come back to item A. So Ray, it's all the approve the personnel business procedures. Usually do this as a consent agenda item. With the one exchange is it Haley Robbins?
No.
Roba? Being removed from consideration for appointment. Or, yeah, for employment. So with that, is there any discussion on any of the resignations, transfers, or employment contracts?
Motion to move personnel business procedures. As we said.
We have a motion second to approve as consent agenda, the resignations, transfers, employments, striking the one mentioned before. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. And that motion passes. And we're waiting on Tim.
Tim's on.
Aye.
I'm here.
We were just, well, this is, we presented this to the buildings and grounds just for consideration. So the quick overview, Tim, of the lease is 5 buses.
5 buses, lease them for 5 years. We will own them at the end of 5.
And the 5 buses are,
3 route buses, 1 trip bus, and a special ed bus, special needs bus.
Getting rid of 6.
this would be the second lease we've gone into. So Tim said earlier that we'd be, did he say we'd be up to speed once we got into year, this would take us to year 10.
Yeah.
Year 15 would kind of get us back on track. So
Right.
we're recommending that the board approve the transportation lease.
And I don't remember if we talked about this finance committee meeting or if it was just on a Tuesday meeting. But from my understanding is the goal, the long-term objective is to every 5 years, lease 5 buses on a cycle of 3. And then we retire them after 15 years and we keep our average age at about 7.5 years versus it being at one point was close to 20. Okay, that's a good plan.
Are we bidding out the old buses like we did last time?
We try to get rid of them. So, yeah,
Well, last time I think we took bids on.
did we do that? Tim?
That was my memory.
Yeah, we took bids on them.
Is that, you think that's a better way to go than see if, would Hoagland take them back and get rid of them, or is that just something we're better off doing ourselves?
We're better off doing, we wouldn't get a trade on these buses
Okay.
for nothing.
Okay. Okay,
The financial, we're good, all that way?
yeah, so this is out of the $150,000.
Transportation budget and penny couple
Okay.
account.
Anyhow, yep.
Motion
So
to,
whatever, I was just gonna say, whatever paperwork needs done to put those buses on bid whenever we know we'll have the other ones and we can start that process.
Tim did tell us that the earliest we would get those, did he say September, October?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
then
it's
we get them within.
September, October.
Get rid of them.
And then when the actual legal lease documents come through, you'll have to approve those. This is just me.
So this is approving, that's kind of like a first stage approval of the lease.
Moving forward, yeah.
Okay.
motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion second for the lease of 5 buses for 5 years with Hoagland Bus Company. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular board meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And I just kind of settled, it's easier for me to say aye and Marty would say yes, so thank you for all following along with that one, I appreciate it. All right, so now we'll go into our work session and call to order with a roll call, please.
Johnson.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Mike Thomas.
Here.
Bob Thomas.
Here.
Shongle.
Here.
Berger.
Here.
Liston.
Here. And again, welcome visitors. Is there anybody of our visitors that want to make a comment as part of our work session public forum? Hearing none, we'll move on to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The agenda is approved. Ms. Bob, you want to start us operational hearing?
I do. I don't get carried away here. We're in an informational session and so on, but I'm gonna try to kind of put A and B together a little bit because that's kind of the rationale. So Lisa and I have had numerous conversations, and what we're obligated to do for the board and for the district is begin to think about next year's budget. It's, pretty big stuff. That's really big. And the district has a 5-year plan that we keep that out in front of us as we bring information to the board. And of course, then we work with Matt Gillespie in terms of where our money is and how it's looking for even a longer period of time. But I think at the core that I just want to reinforce, you all basically know this. I use a different percent on occasion, but somewhere probably between 83% and 87% of our budget, that the money that comes into us is in personnel, is salaries and benefits. So because we're very people driven and that's what we spend our money on. So just want to remind you of that. The other thing that I want to remind you of, and Lisa always helps me with this because it's good for me to say in a public setting that with personnel, salaries and benefits is the bulk of what we spend our money on. sometimes people get confused, or a lot of times we all get confused because we have categorical funding. And you can have X millions of dollars, and Kevin can weigh in on this too, X millions of dollars in a particular account, but that doesn't mean you can spend it on salaries and benefits. So, and that's very common in the school business. We have several categories in our budget that is categorical funding. The 1 cent sales tax is not generated for us to put it in salary. So I'll just stop with that, kind of that high piece of information of general fund and categorical funding and all of our salaries for the most part. Now, we got special ed funds that we code salaries to. That's a little bit different. So with that being said, we begin to think about next year. We think about the past year. Just for your information, and again, Lisa, please don't hesitate if I give a number that isn't correct, but last year we got 2.4% new money from the state of Iowa. They call that SSA, or supplemental state aid. The legislators say we're going to give this amount more from state aid to all of our local districts, and it's usually just a percent. They don't ever just say, here's what your total dollars are. It's a percent. And for the most part, that's based upon enrollment. So if you lose students, like probably the majority of school districts in Iowa are, then that's not a good thing. You're going to probably not get as much money because you don't have as many kids to educate. So last year we got 2.4%. Not this legislative, the last one in 2021. The real important number to me always is, so what does that generate for you in terms of dollars and cents? Last year, 2.4 generated $181,000. So when we put into our budget, we had $181,000 from more from the state than we did the year before. Well, so we look at that, and then we begin to hear what the chatter is with our legislators and with the governor, and what are they considering doing. That has not been set, so we really can't make any budgetary decisions for next year now. We will when that gets set. The chatter in the hard copy that I got from my organization, and it's pretty consistent, is the governor in her State of the Union address, I believe, said 2.5, 0.1 higher than last year. Well, but the problem for the Centerville schools, the challenge for the Centerville schools is we've lost students. We had declining enrollment. Therefore, the number of 181,000 went down. It appears if the 2.5 would hold up. Could it be 2.2? It's probably not going to be more than 2.5. It could go down to 2.2, 3, 4, but we don't know. But if we were to say it's 2.5 with declining enrollment for next year, that's going to probably generate us about $91,000 new money. That's going to create some challenges for us on how we do business for the following year. I'll just stop there. What have I said that doesn't make sense to you?
And you're saying that we have a loss of 18 students?
I was at, no, I did
27.
Well,
27.
oh, that's different.
Well, then that was the open enrollment, I think, was in there. Didn't we talk?
So, yeah, there's 19 that moved out of the district. Yeah. There was open enrollment out, got better by 8, went from like 104 to 96. But our open enrollment in dropped from 50 coming in to 45 coming in. So the net, the way, because some of that you gotta do the double negative to get a positive on that kind of thing. It's a net loss of 27, and I think at the state authorized spending level of $2,400 or whatever it is, it comes out to about $207,000 of loss of spending authority. If I said that right. Just a big number.
So we've got 91,000 less than we had last year in supplemental state aid or new money. So that's a fact, that we don't know that for a fact, that second number of 91,000, because we don't know that 2.5 is the right number, but that's what we're thinking about. So I'm just alerting you to that now. So with that tied into operational sharing, we have an obligation to say, so as we continue to work toward a new fiscal year, July 1 of 2022, we don't know what our settlement will be with our teachers union. That's a big, big piece. And we negotiate with them, and that takes some time. Of course, they don't know what new money is either, so they don't really know where to start. And we normally don't start that process until the legislator says to us by action, this is your supplemental state aid. What percent is that? Then that ball starts rolling. So you look through all the things that you can do, and of course, our focus is personnel. That's the only logical place that you can start in terms of preparing for next year. That's why you have early retirement. You know, we have a position in there that we won't fill. We've offered a position to somebody that will be considerably cheaper. That all helps with some of those things. So operational sharing is an option that districts have. Centerville did operational sharing with Moulton Udell several years ago, before I became your superintendent. Then the year before I came, I think it fell apart. So it's a couple of years. So, but that's still an option for boards to consider. Operational sharing is just sharing personnel, and there's a formula, and I can speak to that just a little bit here. But in your packet, you see a list of all the positions that by law you can share. You can share a superintendent, share a business manager, chief financial officer, human resources, and you see them there, so I don't have to read them all to you. And then what they do is per pupil expenditures, if that's the right way to explain it, is I'm just going to use the number $7,200 is basically what we get. So then the legislators, in concert with the Department of Ed, said, well, if you share a superintendent with a neighboring district, it's worth 8 students. So 8 times 72 is what you would generate in dollars to support that sharing. Now you have to have obviously a partner to share it. You can't do it on your own, so you got to, and they had a partner at one time with Mold. We don't have any sharing going on at all right now. I can tell you that I put a feeler out to area superintendents and just have said, you got some things you might want to think about sharing. There hasn't been anything that's grown out of that at this moment. I do have a meeting tomorrow over the phone with the AEA. The AEA can be a partner of ours, just like another school. So you just begin to have those conversations. So, then you have to work out your formula with your neighboring district, whatever type of position you would like to share or can share, or it makes sense to share, then you have to say, well, we'll assume that they're a full-time person, and that's 20% per day. And, if you shared 2 days, well, then you would have 20% of the cost, and another district would have, or 40% of the cost, the other district would have 60% cost. It's not a complicated formula to do that. And then you got to work out your formula on what that salary is for that particular position, and then you work the formula out. What you generate from the state, because that's the operational sharing.
But let's make sure we're clear. When you say 8 times 7,200, you get that much money. We don't get that in cash. We get it in spending authority. And I think that's what everybody needs to understand is we get the ability to spend that money But that doesn't mean we're generating that cash. Now,
Right.
we could levy for it. There's other things that probably do. But I don't want you to get the impression that this is a money-making opportunity of somebody's gonna hand us a check of 8 times 7,200. That's not gonna happen.
Right. Thank you. And it's not gonna happen until the following fiscal year.
That's one of the things I saw in the packet here is, I didn't know how to take that or what, it didn't make sense to me, something about, it's on like the second page of the thing, where it says note. Those positions we funded for the 22-23 budget, sharing agreements need to be reported on the October 1st, 2021 budget.
Yeah, there's a report that I do in October, so let's say we started sharing with somebody next year. I would report that in October, so the state doesn't know that we're sharing at the beginning of next year, so we're not gonna get spending authority until the following.
Okay, that's what you're saying, okay.
Why is that provision there, do you think?
I suppose because we have to report it, and October is when we report out on all staff, so they just.
Oh, okay,
So would,
that's the piece I didn't know.
which, would sharing something in this next school year have any benefit financially to us?
Well, you're gonna share the cost of the individual, the salary.
Yeah,
Let's say there's a position on this list that we only need somebody to do something 1 or 2 days a week. So you have to provide special ed services. Do you need to have somebody on payroll for special ed 5 days a week? And then you say, no, we can do that with 3 days or 2 days, but maybe Bolton or Ray or somebody could do it for 1 day and 1 day. And so instead of having to spend 100% of that salary, you can spend 60% of it and so forth. That'd be an example of that.
I'm not capable of understanding that, that kid would be here every day.
Okay,
Usually it's
okay.
done by periods.
So then how about if I use?
So you need to use, I would use special, you could use a teacher, but usually it's leadership roles.
I got you.
That isn't assigned to kid.
I just picked the job title as an example.
Yeah, I know.
It would be more, usually those are not kid specific, like a master social worker.
Yeah.
Just schedule.
Yeah, I'm not talking special ed aid.
The other thing, yes, you have to put it in your reporting, but we don't really have to have a approval of the state to do it. We have to report it.
If you don't report, you're not getting this increase.
That's correct. But because if I mean, if you can make the arrangement, the state doesn't come in and make your arrangements for how you do the one position. You work it out between the two districts. The state, they don't even come in and said if you was sharing a given position, you don't have to log the exact time and hours that you're in the other district. Because in some of these positions, you may say it's a 40-60, 2-day, 3-day deal, but you may not go to that district every day. You don't, it isn't that controlled by the state. So that's just, one thing that districts look at. You can see that there is some data there at the number of districts that do it. I would tell you that districts that are of our size, 1,200, have less sharing than the districts of 300-400 kids, 500 kids, 600 kids. They have done a lot of it, but it's just because normally when you have 100 kids in a class, you don't have numerous positions where you can not have your folks around. They're going to a different district. Proximity has a little bit to do with it. How much time are you gonna, logically speaking, is Centerville gonna share a position with Pella? That's quite a jump. I mean, you got people on the road. If you get into, that 15, 20, or 25 range, and then depending on the position, but that's doable. You can get where your other site is in a half an hour.
What came to my mind was the last paragraph, next to last paragraph, the other sharing partners. We've already doing some things within the hills, and they're certainly a government agency, or I think, qualify. And we had talked about a human resource manager or position. They might be well positioned for that and help us with that.
Can we share with any notes?
Yes,
I mean, did I read that correctly?
no, you read it correctly.
In cities, counties, city government.
Yeah, we could partnership with the county or even the city of Centerville, or, there's other groups right here in town if we saw a good fit.
Yeah.
I missed that part, okay.
Well, it's just something that I don't know, since I've been here, that we've had an open discussion about it, and the board had a pretty high degree of understanding
Yeah, I wasn't educated on it.
and how it works and what opportunities. Sometimes they work extremely well, and sometimes they don't work very well at all. I would say that I think you have a responsibility, I do anyway, have a responsibility to say, well, first of all, you need to take care of your kids in Centerville, Iowa. And that doesn't mean that we don't sacrifice some of that once in a while, but it's just something that I thought was important, and talking with Kevin and Lisa, that we at least get out in front of you to let you know that we know that if we're going to be facing some difficult challenges for the budgetary year 23, that we're probably going to have to look under a lot of rocks to see how we make all that work. And this is a rock that's going to have to be looked under. So I just threw those two together because the supplemental state aid that we may or may not get has a bearing on how we plan for the future. We're not in a panic mode by any means, and I'm not trying to imply to the board, to our community, to our teachers that we're destitute. I don't think we can fairly say that we're destitute, but the reason we're not is because we've done some very strong planning. And the finance of the district can be a little bit like the facilities of the district. Just don't get behind and manage your budgets wise year to year to year. We haven't pink slipped a person since I've been your superintendent. Now, I'm not telling you that because I was your superintendent. I'm telling you that because it's been somewhat of the philosophy of the district that let's look at early retirement. Let's look at times when teachers move on down the road. Do we have to fill the position? I do have a very strong belief that anytime you have a vacancy in your school system, somebody says, I'm retiring or I'm moving on, that is your time to assess that, because it's the least painful way to do it. Because you don't have to walk up to somebody a year from now and pink slip them. That's the time to assess how you can do business potentially differently when people leave or retire. So, I don't really have anything else to say about it, but and as you think about it, in any way, shape, or form, we can talk about it again, obviously. I'm gonna put Lisa on the spot here just a second, because I think you know this. Our budget timeline is when do we start bringing the budget before the board? February.
Talk about it preliminarily, and then March some more, and then April, we have to have it to the county auditor by April 15th. So our budget meeting is April 12th, I think.
So, and that's the action meeting on April 12th.
Yeah.
So we have time between then to see what happens with, and that timeline doesn't ever change.
No.
So the crazy thing is we don't know what all of our expenses are going to be but yet we gotta set our budget. And I know people that have never been in school budgeting affairs, when you first hear about all those types of things, you go, how the heck does that work? Well,
Not very good.
How's that shortfall of the student or state aid, how's that compare with what's in our 5-year plan? Is
I
it,
think we figured 1%.
I had 1.5.
And a loss of 10, so it's probably about a wash, because is what I was thinking in my mind. If we were guessing, in my mind, it was 1% and 10 students down,
Yep.
and we're 27 students down, but thinking we'll get 2.5%. It'd probably be where, this year, we really don't wanna replace 2 teachers, next year, we don't wanna
The
replace 2
27
teachers.
cents is a big shock. And the finance committee doing the 1.5 like Brooke talked, we took a kind of a low number conservative estimate. That when there's more, that is beneficial to all the metrics, but the 27 that's a big shock.
and I, for one, wish we had a better way of knowing what the student enrollment's gonna do. We go on the conservative side, but we just don't know. But, you know, I bug Julie Craccio because when we're trying to find out what our kindergarten class is, you know, in the olden days, the simple thing was to say, how many kindergartners do you have? Okay. How many seniors graduated? Okay. And that's the mobility of people within and out. And there are other things going on that I would just mention at this legislative level is vouchers, where there's folks that are highly endorsing those, and the money going with the private private schools. We have private schools now. We really have the answer to that because we have open enrollment. And if you want to open enroll your child, you can. But this is beyond that. So that's another thing that could be out there. My only editorial is that we have 1.24 billion in the kitty in Iowa. That's a lot of money. And as of right now, it doesn't appear that there's as big a chunk out of that for public education as what most superintendents and I would think most board members would like. But that's the legislators that make those decisions.
I think the state general fund, when I went to the IASB meeting in November, and one of the finance courses I was in, they flashed a graphic up there, and I want to say 50% of the state general fund budget goes to education at all levels in Iowa, to include Regent universities and community colleges and so forth. So it's a big chunk of the state's money.
Anything else?
So that, therefore, they will take that and play political football with it as long as they can.
A, B, anything else on those two, Kevin?
No.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Facilities management budget, I guess maybe, you guys want to chime in on, we looked at, let me go back. 600,000 is what we dedicate, the finance committee dedicates every year to maintenance projects throughout a fiscal year. The facilities committee took a look at that and looked at some of our expenditures, some of our projects. As of right now, we have about 231,000 in there. It was the number, correct? And so when Tim was here, we just talked about some of the projects that may surface between now and June 30th. And then just wanted to make mention that we've been in that process of the 600,000 for several years. It's worked well for us. Do we have any more of those, Lisa?
I have them all that way. So I had enough.
Okay, they're here then. I just go through. So you have that in front of you there, and just beginning to think about how we work with Tim, buildings, and other folks, custodians, on next year's 600,000. Pretty simple. I don't know if facilities committee had any additional comments for what we talked about.
Is there a plan to do something with this 231 or we don't need to spend it?
No, well, they asked that, we talked about it, and it's just, as we see, there were some things that we had on the list originally that we took off because we just didn't know if we could do it.
Okay.
So now we keep an eye on those things. We had some concrete, for example, out in front of this building, some concrete over there. I just think of that, which, if we were setting good and we don't have any surprises, could we do that within the 231? And if not, we have to carry it over into next year.
Some of those projects are weather related, and can't start concrete down, so.
I guess because this is what we've spent, not what we've done.
That's what we spent.
Right. So is there another list of what still needs to be done?
She said,
The summer maintenance list or just anything in general?
Anything that's gonna consume the 231, 525.
drainage at Lakeview, and the downspouts. That was one of the summer projects that didn't get done yet. And that's, I think, Tim said that's the only one,
He's got some outstanding fire alarm
yeah.
expenses.
So will our summer projects come out of the 231?
No,
If we do money, and
That's the one that do
now
money.
look at the bottom, 163.
Okay.
Down there below.
I run it to the fiscal year, so as of July 1st, I assume that I've got 600 more to go.
Right, okay.
Mr. Morlaw suggested that we really needed to upgrade our security system.
Okay.
So,
Especially Lakeview.
yeah, and Cameron expressed, some expertise in that field.
Okay.
So we're just kind of holding back, I guess, would be the best way to say it, to see where we're at. Because like Tim said, you never know what's gonna happen between now and June 30th.
So before I ask what I think I want to ask, I'm gonna make sure that I understand. When we get this is PEPAL and SAFE money, right?
Mhm.
So if we don't spend it all, it can go just stay in the account, right?
Yeah.
There's no maximum limit that we get into like cash reserve.
No.
Okay. So as we're thinking about the high school project, I'm not sure that we need to go out there right now and just be eager to spend more than we need to spend. Because I'm thinking about the high school project, this is probably a finance committee discussion, but I'm just speaking off the top of my head right now is, do we need to save, would it be appropriate to save some of this money for some of the fixtures on the high school project, just like we had to do the fixtures at Howard?
I mean, that's a good point for discussion.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think finance committee should make that recommendation, that we need to start, maybe we need to hold that money back. Facilities, as far as we're concerned, we got this money and we've got all these projects that we're taxed with
Yeah.
accomplishing.
So what I'm thinking, I was thinking about asking was, can you develop a list and a cost estimate for all the things that you'd like to do? So the finance committee can start looking at when we do the high school thing is, maybe if we need to adjust that amount by something, if this is a good year, because there's a lot got accomplished, if we can hold some of that money back for the fixtures in high school.
I'm guessing Tim has a list, because in the past, he's always had a list.
Yeah,
But, yeah, I'd like to,
Cost.
but we need a list here at the table so we can look at it.
yeah, he's,
Well, I'm guessing
These are
facilities
provided-
is needed.
he's still developing the list. for-
Later in the spring,
next
we
year.
usually see that.
Yeah, we don't have that list completed.
But there's not, that's why I'm asking, there's not a list to use other than what you talked about today to spend the $231,000.
But it's also just routine, I mean,
Right, I
it's
get
just
it.
routine stuff.
Yeah.
And I also think with that, it's really gonna be before we're doing fixtures. Isn't it gonna be a couple
We're gonna be
years?
very tight on our high school budget.
It's a,
We need to see what the bids come in for the
Yeah.
junior high,
Yeah.
which will give us a clue for the bids on the high school. So some of what you're asking, we maybe gotta wait a month or so.
Right, and that's, I'm just putting it out there since we're talking about this is, I think we need to be prudent and make sure, because what was the deal in the language that we couldn't, because some of the stuff that's on here, on the bottom half, we could not spend on the bond money because of the wording of the bond language.
When we did the bond language for Howard and the preschool and the athletic complex, the renovations to the offices was not a part of that, so we didn't put in furnishings in the language. So when it came time for the furniture, we can't pay that from the bonds, so that's why it had to come from the maintenance budget.
So, and I just don't know if we have that scenario with the high school or not yet. So that's why I just want to be,
I agree with you. I mean, if we could save as much, I mean, that's ultimately best. I think,
and it's gonna come out of a multi-years as we get it done. So a little bit this year, a little bit next year, we just kind of set something aside out of that.
Tim, the part that I would say about that is Tim did take quite a bit off this list that we did this year. Because we cut it back a lot.
Yeah.
So some of that stuff may not be able to wait and, just different things that,
Because then I feel like we get into the situation that we've been in, is that, oh, well, we can't spend this money on this routine stuff, because.
Well, and that's why I'm asking for an
And then
open
we're
project list.
into we gotta spend a ton of money fixing things we should have just been
Yeah.
maintaining.
in our facilities meeting, we talked about starting to make that list of what's.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
We're gonna talk about the preschool thing a little bit for the rest of the board.
About the finances.
Yes.
Well,
I mean, they need
So
to.
before we move on, from a facility standpoint, can we get an open projects list is what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, it's coming up, it's coming.
For this year,
That for anything that would be, that we would obligate this $231,000.
Yeah, I think Tim can provide that, understand, Tom?
yeah, other than the concept of we don't know, some things that could come up.
Yeah, I mean, we can get you a list in 2 weeks, but we don't know what's gonna happen.
No, I get it. I mean, a boiler could come up and that stuff could come up and I get it.
Yeah.
But is there anything that's planned to do?
The only thing we've really talked about with this money is possibly the concrete work.
Right.
30,000.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and the drains.
And the drains, yeah.
And if there's some security work, and that's the kind of stuff,
Yeah.
you know, there's kind of like this, we're holding this back for something blows up in a boiler room and an HVAC or something like that, but there's also this, we're kind of playing, so we need to do the routine maintenance, there's two pieces of it. And what I'm asking for is the routine maintenance that we're looking at doing.
Part of the reason you also hold out the FF&E stuff is the architect doesn't get a percentage of that. If you include it in part of the quote,
Right.
then, it just makes sense for us. Like we did on Howard, we took out the cabinets and, we took out, fixtures and furnishings. And so the architect just didn't get part of that.
Okay, so what was the other thing you're bringing up?
just that as a board or a finance committee, we just need to talk with all our bonding attorneys because of the ESSER funds leaving a large amount of money left from the 2020 bond. We need to be able to have clarification on, do we have to spend it on the preschool before we put some of it toward the
Right.
high school? And we just need clarification on that. I think as a whole board, I think we all need to be understanding of that.
We have to spend some money on the preschool. That was in the language of the bond vote.
Because our 2020 bonds, it doesn't have the high school in it. We need to, my thinking is that we have to spend the money on the preschool tower and the athletic complex before we can spend it on the high school. So that's why I'm just concerned about the timelines of preschool. And so I just think it would be a good idea to get the legal expert in to talk about it.
And then we thought we could do that prior to our February board meeting, at our finance committee meeting at 5:00.
I'm trying to think how much in preschool that should is. I may not have it in this package.
But they've got some new ideas now, I think, too. Don't they?
But one of the things on that is too, also when the bids come in on our secretaries.
Yeah.
Knowing what
It's just coming right
that
in.
is.
Okay, so is there anything else on the facilities maintenance budget? Okay. As I look at this list, it looks like a lot of things got done. So I think that's a good thing, so. And the fact that we still have a good chunk of money left at this point of the year, I think is a good thing too. Hopefully that's a good trend. Okay. School board work session proposed topics in your board packet. There's a list. I prepared that list. I gave this to Tom a couple weeks ago because probably a month ago, Tom asked me about my opinions on some work sessions. So I thought through some things and we're going to put them in front of you. What I would ask each board member is to go through this list and then you can get back to me or you can get back to Tom, but I would like everybody to get back and give some input on what do you want the monthly work session topics to be? What are the things that are important to you that are going on in the district that you think we need to have this? And for Tim, for the difference between a regular meeting and work sessions, we can't take any action, make any decision in this meeting. This is basically to talk about issues and just have open discussion on it. But if we're to take action, it has to be a regular board meeting. So this is time for, just to get issues on the table, have people come and make presentations and so forth. So what are the kinds of things that you would like to see as a board member, brought and talk about this? So one that I have is an ISB session on better boardsmanship. We're just, our average tenure is less than 3 years on the board. I know we have some people with more than that, but there's 4 people with less than 3 years. So I think getting some, it's difficult to go and take a couple days off and go to the IASB convention. I get that. I also think it's very educational to go that and to go on an ongoing basis, maybe not every year, but every other year or so forth. I think it would be good to go to those conventions. But since it is difficult, and with the COVID that was canceled the year before last and so forth, I think we need to bring IASB in to do some better boardsmanship. Another proposed topic with the virtual academy, you can see all those things in there. We launched that last year. I think at some point it'd be good to see how is it working. I think that's something that we as a board should really understand. Because I think part of the conversation we had was we need to probably try this for 2 or 3 years. We can't just do 1 year and say it didn't work. We need to give it several years. But I think it'd be prudent to get, some updates on how is it really working. I know building principals do regular reports, but one of the things in the ESSER funds was something on student achievement in the ESSER funds. So I put that in there, how is that actually being used in the buildings? An in-depth review in the high school. At some point, we're gonna have to do that. There are some budget issues coming up. I think 2 years ago, when it was our first year on the board, the budget process just kind of happened because of COVID hit right in the middle of all that, the worst time of the year. So I don't know, I hear sometimes with board members, I really don't understand the budgeting process and what goes in. So I think having something work session to get some financial time to spend on what the financial metrics are, what the 5-year plan is, what some of the terminology is. And I know we've done that in the past, but I can tell you from going up to the convention up there, it was just like, yeah, I forgot. And I'm on the finance committee, I said, yeah, I forgot how that works. So just continuous training to the board on the whole finances. The future ready blueprint, and then, setting goals for the district. And that might also be an IASB workshop also. And then I know there's been some discussion in the past about what does the AEA actually do for the district? And I think invite them in to kind of talk to us about what they do, because I know you brought that up before. So are some of the topics that I came up with. If there's anything that you guys want on there or any of these you think, nah, we don't really need that, just get back with me and let me know. But, I think the work session should have input from you guys as far as what we should be talking about. So if you want to discuss any of them now, we're certainly open to do that.
I'm assuming, and this probably can't be on a work session, but we really need to get on updating policies.
Right.
I don't, I mean, we haven't,
Yep.
according to our board
Policy.
policy, yeah,
We have the problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah. But I don't think, that's probably because we have to take action on that, right?
It's a good point, but yeah, work session, we can't take action. But if we had a work session, we brought some policies up and had a few that we did some readings on in the regular, I don't know if we could do the regular meeting before the work session, just like we did.
We need to do the whole each series.
Because the auditor has pointed that out to us.
That'll be right up this year.
Well, this year.
If I could just chime in for a second, basically you'd have three, this fiscal year, February, March, and April of board work sessions is kind of the way it's planned now. And, if you said we're gonna do 2 hours, you can get half an hour segments on a topic and then into another one, but that's kind of up to you. It depends on the topic, how much time we would want to dedicate or how much time we need to dedicate to it. The other thing is the reason I like this is it gives you some time to think about what you want to learn more about. And I'm not being critical, I'm just being honest, is when we get questions about something that we don't know ahead of time and can't plan for to respond to, it makes it tough to give good responses. So if you think about those types of things that you want to learn more about, therefore we know ahead of time and therefore we can prepare for it. Okay.
I think one issue is, it's kind of a security, life safety thing. Earlier we talked about security cameras, but I think we need to take a look at that whole thing, is how we're keeping kids safe. And, want to know what happens if there's an incident, how will we respond? Is there a plan, for a response, that sort of thing? I'm not sure that we've got that at this point. Maybe we do.
We do.
Okay. I don't know anything about it.
You're talking about.
Without sounding bad, you're not supposed to know about it.
Well, just as long as I know there is one, but
Yeah.
but it's like, I know several years ago, we put in fire hydrants all around Lake. That was kind of a life safety thing. And, the cameras, is there more that we need to do? Not necessarily, I don't need to know the plan, but what else do we need to implement to make sure it works?
Yeah, those fire hydrants was a recommendation of the fire department, I think.
Yeah. I would like to see a report on student activities. I don't know how many kids are doing what it costs, what students are expected to, their expenses. I had a parent ask me about the trap shooting club, my kid has to buy all their ammunition. I didn't know that. At least that's what I remember him saying.
I thought we got a bunch of ammunition.
They do have to purchase
Oh, they do have to purchase it?
it. We buy it and they reimburse.
But, all the activities we got going, I mean, we've got swimming and we've got trap shooting and we've got esports and, I'd just like to know what's going on and what are we spending on that stuff? And a part of the presentation by AEA, I would really like to survey our staff before they come. Just get their feelings on how effective it is. I know what I've got a pretty good idea about what AA is going to tell me they're doing. I want to know if the staff thinks they're doing it.
Yeah, and that's, as we get into, get close to planning that, if we identify what we want to put there, then maybe it's like, get some more detail what you want to hear from somebody.
Sure.
Because one of the questions I have in AEA is, AEA shows up on the property tax bill. And we also buy services from them. Why is there, it seems like a double.
It's just the AEA is just pass through money, just to make the system simpler.
But if they're already being funded through property tax, why are we buying services from them? Why isn't that just not covered? That's what I don't understand, so.
Well, they're the vendor, so you have to purchase those services from them. Is that right, Tom?
Well, we don't purchase, I mean,
It's,
a lot of the services, that's part of what the flow-through money purchases. I suppose are there times when we write a check?
it's over $500,000, I know that.
Well,
Well,
that's the
the
flow-through.
bulk of it is the flow through. I have to look.
Well, I don't think beyond the flow-through that we spend much more money on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You would see it on your bills.
So maybe
You do some PD trainings and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
But we're still authorizing to spend that money. And I just want to make sure we're getting what we paid, the money they're getting paid, I hope we're getting some services that are valuable to our staff.
So if we're doing $500,000 of pass-through taxes, we should be getting $500,000 of services, is what you're saying?
I don't think so, yeah.
Okay. I mean, that seems fair and logical.
No, I'm not sure if that's totally logical.
Why?
It depends what services certain children need, and they might all be in some little small district. You're educating kids for the whole state. You're not, get rid of that selfish point of view. And you know, education is we're all working together. And so whoever needs those services, get some, we're all paying taxes to help who needs that help.
The flow-through, that's a formula that's established by law. So that's just
I mean,
fact.
we're going to be control.
So, but we don't know how much that money is. And the only thing we can say back to the bulk of that is special education services. But we can, I mean, I don't know how extensive the list would be, but we could say these are the services we get. Whether it be curriculum instruction or special ed, I mean, we can get our arms around that.
Well, there's certain years you would use those services and other years you wouldn't. If you're doing something in social studies, you'd have I don't even know if they have social studies consultants and English people. I think that's all outdated, but there's certain years you're doing things where you need their expertise. And then you might not need that for another 5 years.
And see, that's what I wanted to come and do it, because take myself off the board, just look at my property tax bill. I get multiple property tax bills for different things that I have. And I'm sitting now, so I know I'm paying for that service. Now, come back to the board is the district getting the value for, or what are they doing with that tax money? And I think they should come in and just tell us, this is the service you provide, because I could not sit here and tell you what services AEA provides us. I don't know, I've been on the board 2 years.
Now, you know, the AEA has a board.
Yeah.
And there's a board member
In Centerville.
that represents us. So, you know, that's another, just be aware of the fact that there are board members on there that their chief administrator responds to, just like I respond to you.
So I just want AEA to come in, tell us what they do, because I don't know what they do.
The other thing is, I don't know how it fits in here or not, but YMCA is considering an expansion. And they plan to close that street between our student parking lot and YMCA. They should know something by the third quarter of this year. They're also kind of interested in working with the school district if there's some way that we could share facilities or share services or whatever. But I don't know what closing that street, how that's going to impact us.
That's interesting, because I heard that 2 years ago, but lots happened in 2 years.
Yeah. So,
That there was,
and it may fizzle out, but they were, the gentleman, I talked to Bill Ortiz, who I talked to, and he was pretty emphatic that they were really trying to push this through, so
I have a meeting scheduled with the YMCA on February 8th.
maybe you'll get some information then. But that could be a topic, if we feel that it's going to impact us.
yeah, I don't remember who I talked to, but a couple years ago, they were talking about their reduced expansion, and the street closing is familiar from the conversation a couple years ago. And I think one of the things that, and again, this is a couple years old information, was if they expanded their facilities and closed the street and we expanded, how close did those buildings go And would we want to build a corridor for sharing facilities? But that was a couple years ago. I remember that being one of the conversations. I wasn't on the board at the time, so I didn't really pay that close attention to it, but.
It could impact us and we should hear about it if it truly is gonna go.
That's. Okay, so look through this. If there's anything else that you want on here, let me know, get back. And I just appreciate, because this is, the work sessions for all of us. And so I think we should all work together to create the agenda for those things, okay? Update on food nutrition.
We've had this out in front of us, and it's still out in front of us. We had scheduled a meeting, and the 3 board members, Mike, Brooke,
Tim.
and Tim, we were on that, you still are, it hasn't gone away. We were gonna have a meeting on a week from tonight, on January 31st. Well, as Lisa and I got into this and started working, Lisa mainly and Chad, working with the Department of Ed Nutrition Division, we found out that there was working with a lady by the name of Shay Cook. It's an interesting name to work in nutrition with Shay Cook. But we had quite a few documents and reports and information to gather prior to having anybody come in, that we would have been premature. So we're still working on it. And no decisions. The board will have to act on this if in fact they want to do it. But we have to do a bunch of stuff for the DE that's not going to get done the next one. I talked to one of the vendors and in fact, I talked to 2 of the vendors and I said, whether it's vendor A or vendor B, what's the urgency of addressing this in January, February, or March? And they said, both of them said, we've presented to boards as late as May and June and been able to do something for the following school year if the board wanted to do that. So I'm just planting the seed. We're not in a panic just because we're canceling the meeting, but we got to have time to get some stuff done for the DE.
I have visited several schools so far and have several more to visit, to see how their lunch program goes. And just because I don't know a lot about school lunch programs. So I think it's fascinating.
We'll see what comes out of it and see if it's the right thing to do for kids and staff. And it's a change. Food service programs in the state of Iowa and across the country are pretty consistent. And I don't know if you know this, but the federal government weighs heavily in on hot lunch food service programs in local school districts. And it's under the umbrella of the Department of Agriculture, has been for quite some time. So we'll keep you posted, and when we think we've got all the paperwork and preliminaries done, then we'll get our group together and talk about it and hear from some.
There's an article that you all got a copy of that just won this morning. I get the NEA Retired Teacher Journal. And it was in my mail that I was going through last night, and it looked like an interesting article. Makes you think outside the box a little bit, but it doesn't fit in the way you're thinking now. But some good things in there, talking about the kind of food we used to give kids, or the demands the federal government had, what had to be on a tray in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And those of us who taught a long time ago know those lunches were much better than they are today, I think, probably. But there's also things like some schools are doing community gardens where the kids grow the stuff and then eat the stuff that they grew. And there's places getting fresh local food. Are we doing that at all, do you guys know? We buying anything local?
Not particularly here. No.
I don't know.
There's something in there where a guy in Maine drives an hour every day to get, so his kids have fish every week in the school cafeteria, fresh fish.
We have local gardens at a couple of the schools. but we're not using any of that food for our school meals. I think there's one over at Howard and one here at Lakeview, but the food is not being used at the lunch programs yet.
Okay,
The schools I visited do not source any of their food locally other than maybe going to the local grocery store, but not, I think the way you're talking.
you like, what's that country road lady? Is that what that's called?
Yeah.
Melanie, yeah,
I can't think, yeah.
you don't buy any of her stuff.
But could be something when these present, just ask, because I remember one of the vendors talked heavily about, they do a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, so the question is local sourcing an option? And the answer is, they'll have to tell us. I do know that when they gave a presentation 2 years ago, the question was, how can you do this cheaper than a school district doing it? And part of the answer was they rely very heavily on the volume of food they purchase for all of the districts to negotiate better prices to buy food cheaper. So if that's how they pay themselves, because they're a for-profit business, if that's how they do it, to be able to balance the buying local, which may be more expensive, that may offset their ability to do this cheaper. So we'll just have to look into it and see. I mean, I like the idea of, because there's some greenhouses around here that are growing a lot of food. I know that there's a greenhouse, at least several years ago, and they grow a lot of things for out of Honey Creek. So to tap into that local, and I'm trying to think, there's a guy that was doing some things on the farmer market. I talked to him a year and a half ago. He was very interested in doing some things for food security and some local growing, some things. So to get some of those involved would be in accordance with that.
But then they gotta meet USDA
Yep.
food standards,
They gotta
which
meet all that.
often is way out of their cost range.
Okay. Anything else on the food nutrition program?
Nope.
So that's gonna happen on the 31st here?
No,
No, it's not. You said it's not.
no,
It's
Okay.
it's not.
I missed that part.
No, nothing on the 31st. It's the original schedule.
Sorry. Okay. Principal reports.
Let's see. We'll start with Julie Crocchio. You got anything to add to your report that you've submitted? The board has all of it in there. Any highlights or anything?
Just that our family fun night was in December. We kind of do that instead of doing a Christmas program. They started this a couple years ago. The teachers work really hard to get that organized, and every child that comes gets to participate, not just our preschoolers. So their whole family can come. We served cookies and punch and things, and just each room had a different activity, and it was full participation. Most of our families came, so it was a great night, and the teachers work really hard to make it a fun, successful night. So I think it's a great way to get our families into our school and participate and see what their kids have been doing. But,
Thank you.
yeah.
Terry, did you have anything beyond your report or highlight in your report?
I would just say the same kind of thing like what Julie mentioned. I had put in there something that's kind of new to us at Lakeview and even in surrounding school districts around our area. We implemented a new company program. It's called a Wilson product, and it is really designed for students who struggle with reading. For example, students who are dyslexic, students who are missing some of what the lady talks about is the code of the language. And we utilize some of that ESSER money you guys were talking about a little bit earlier. But in the last couple of years, you've probably heard me talk a little bit about working with Elizabeth from Apples of Gold. She has her own company there in Pella, a couple branch sites in Sheraton and Oskaloosa. And I'm just I can't say enough. It doesn't matter if we bring it unless teachers teach it and they work so hard with our kids. It wouldn't change things. But we have really seen some great growth in our very struggling readers. And it takes a long time. Our parents have been great partners. We've increased some special ed minutes to get the kids embedded in that, upwards of 60 minutes. Some days where typically they might have been 30 or 45. But I just can't say enough good things about our teachers. Our title teachers, our special ed teachers have gone through a lot of the training with it. Elizabeth is great. She answers our phone, my text, all those kinds of things. But I just don't know that we'd be able to really get things moving like we have without this. I know in probably the last 7 years, the work we've been doing, we're seeing more improvement through this program than anything else we've done. We had a little guy, I know he came to us this fall, new to the district, as a 3rd grader, and probably was not reading 5 words per minute. And, the other day he said to his teacher, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rank me with the rest of the class, like at the top? And you just think, what does that tell you about the way the teachers are implementing the work, the way kids are starting to feel confident about their ability to break words down and know the sounds and to be able to build them. And so just a lot of good things going on there. And I'm just grateful for that. But like I said, the work is the teachers who have done that training and that commitment. It's a lot. And they're all in, and I'm proud of them and grateful for that.
Hey, Terry, one of the questions I had when I read through the report, I was just curious, you're talking about the language art curriculum. What's the life cycle of curriculum? How long, when we buy curriculum, does it last until it's replaced and changed out with something else?
Well, I would tell you what, I could, just like thinking back, I would share this story with you. And I know that many of the other administrators jump in, the rest of you guys too, but 12 years ago, Lakeview was the first building in the district on the SINA, which was a school in need of assistance plan. It was a No Child Left Behind legislation. And at that time, because we were designated as a school in need of assistance, the AEA came in and worked with us. And, when we started looking out there at that curriculum, the answer was, Centerville schools, you are not teaching the core curriculum, Iowa core curriculum, at a depth enough to help get our kids moving where they need to. So we worked with those individuals and some people even from the Department of Education. And again, I just have to compliment our teaching staff. We asked them, K-6, we're going to buy a new math curriculum this year, but the Department of Ed or the people with the AEA are saying we need to have something higher aligned to the Iowa core. So, about 10 years ago, we bought the new Journeys curriculum, and I think we had that 6 or 7 years, and then we just purchased this Wonders. What we've noticed from the testing is that what our teachers are doing in the classroom, we are seeing some very high alignment to the transfer of skills, to the vocabulary, to the writing. I don't know how many teachers have said this year, man, I love the writing embedded in this reading program. And what we know research says is when kids write, they read better, that good connection there. So usually it's 6 to 7 years, I would say. What about you guys, Matt, Karen, Julie? Do you think that's about right? Or would you guys say something different?
No, that's right.
Yeah, I would say 6 to 7.
That's what it always was all the time I was teaching.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Karen, Power, anything in your report you want to add on to?
Yeah, as I was rereading what I wrote, I wanted just to highlight that our drama club will be putting on the first play in 3 years, actually. On March 13th of 2020, we got to show one showing of our play before going home for the rest of the semester. So we're pretty excited. The drama club is getting together now. They're hopefully going to have everything together, and we hope that the sicknesses that we have will subside so that on March 11th, on that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we'll have great production. I also wanted to let you know that our parent-teacher conferences for both Howard and CHS are March 17th and the 22nd. And one thing that we did notice is because of the different options that parents have, whether they come in person, they Zoom, or they have a phone option, we actually had 87% of our parents and guardians attend our fall conferences, which is great. We would have about 65% back when we held it in the gym and it was everybody could come and stand in line. So we were pretty excited about that and look forward to meeting with our parents and guardians here again in March.
Thank you. Matt, what do you have?
I can see him on my phone.
Yeah, he's there.
All right, now I can, I'm having a hard time. Your audio is cutting in and out. You guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to point out under my families and community section, this is a really great opportunity that we've been able to get connected to for some of our students, and that's the Alliant Energy online high school program. This was a program that was piloted last year through Alliant that is for students interested in the energy field. And a lot of times, especially with our students, it's they identify energy careers as like a lineman. And when I talked to the lady, Lori, who is in charge of this, she always said, you know, the guy on the pole and the guy in the hole is what most people think about, but there are 20 plus energy careers that Alliant has. Anyway, there's a program that they've expanded statewide, and this is really in an attempt to help them identify early talent where students can take an online course through Alliant, and it's every Thursday from 1 to 3. It's recorded so students can fit it into their schedule. They don't have to do it live. And if they complete the program, then they're able to qualify for a possible student internship in the summer. And then after participating in that student internship, that gains them access either to pre-apprentice programs, or should they want to go to a community college for an energy field scholarship. So currently we had 3 students who attended the informational session. And I think now one of them is more interested in industrial maintenance. He's in that academy right now, but 2 of them want to continue on with this because their career goal is to be a lineman, and this is a great end for them. So we're really excited to be able to get connected with it, and I wanted to share that.
Thank you. And Mecca is our last report.
Hi, I wanted to highlight a little bit about our community meetings, in particular with our high school students in grades 9 through 12. Emily Kozak, she meets with our students at the high school level once a week during a community session. And during that time, the goal really is to help our students continue to feel connected, not only to each other, but also to the building still. And also then she provides some social emotional learning activities for them. But one of our partnerships, one of our programs that we've continued to offer second semester is a partnership with Nicole from Indian Hills and Jamie from Iowa Vocational Rehabilitation Services. So they provide monthly sessions to our high school students. It's called Bring Your A Game to Work, and the A stands for attendance, appearance, attitude, ambition, acceptance, accountability, and appreciation. So students are working through these sessions with both Nicole and Jamie, learning why it is important to show up to your employee as scheduled, or having, an enthusiastic attitude when you come to work, being trustworthy, going beyond expectations. And so during this time, we're happy to be able to give our students some exposure to, real life skills and skills that will help them in the future in their career.
Thank you.
Anything else?
From my report?
Yeah.
Just one thing that continues to be somewhat of a cloud over our head is we're still working with the Appalachia County Department of Health and managing our COVID issues and a lot of those things. I really thought that would be over by now. It is not by any means. So still deal with it on a daily basis. I don't know what to say other than that. And on some days, we have to dance pretty fast to make sure everything is covered. And there are days when our principals and our teachers, basically our principals, have to make sure there's a plan for putting the pieces together so we get all of our classes covered, and those using a variety of ways. Our substitute lists aren't long. Now, I'm not whining. I just feel obligated to say it continues to be a problem. We're not in it alone by any means. Mount Air is not going to go back to school and until Wednesday because of subs, COVID illness, and we got a bunch of illness going around too. So I don't want to speak for the Department of Health. I just know that there are days when we're trying to keep our kids in school. Our parents, for the most part, are cooperating with us. Our teachers are going beyond the call of duty. Our principals, by all accounts, are going beyond the call of duty. I just hope that we can continue to keep plugging through this thing, because if we get to our bus drivers, that was one that we stewed about a lot. Tim and Mike are both subbing almost every day in the morning and night. So I just alert you to the fact we're staying the course. We're trying to push through this, but there could be something that happens that causes us to have to say, I'm not so sure we go to school today for a variety of reasons. So I just ask that you kind of keep that in mind, and there isn't any magic formula for it. But if you don't have enough teachers, and if you don't have enough subs, you don't have enough bus drivers, it's hard to have a school that's effective. So just wanted to mention that.
With the weather stuff, we still on track to get out of school on time.
Yeah, we still have a little cushion left. But it's pretty chilly out there right now. So I'll be chatting here pretty soon with some other folks, but we're still good shape for the end of the year, but who knows when that could change very quickly. Got a long way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the board, anything, got any final comments?
I want to know, at one point, we talked about the transportation building and grounds position. And I haven't heard any more about that. I really feel strongly that there needs to be some overlap between the outgoing and the incoming. That is a big job, and there needs to be some transfer of knowledge there, I think. And so I'd like to see that come up, hear your thoughts at a future meeting about what we think we have to do there.
I have given it a lot of thought, but I don't have a lot of answers.
Fun, your future, I like that. I mean, June 30th is coming, and we need to get something going.
And we've got curriculum and instruction.
Yeah.
And we've got vocal music, so it's just one of several.
Yeah.
And so But as I talked about finances, there's just pieces that have to be thought through on how we do that. And I'll be happy to share those thoughts when I have confidence
There you go.
in my thoughts.
Okay, that's why. Look forward to it.
Rick, you got anything? Bob? Tim, anything you want to add?
I did have we talked a couple weeks ago about some of the transportation issues that we're having. Maybe it was in the finance committee, but having trouble with bus drivers getting enough.
Yeah.
And I know we talked a little bit about maybe we have to do something, wages or whatever, but I talked to a couple of people out in the community and I heard some things that I never even thought of, which, yeah, salary plays into it, but how many people want to drive a bus? Like they said, they've shortened or consolidated the routes. You're gonna drive the bus and try to keep 60 kids, you know, take care of them. That's a tough job.
It is.
So, I mean, I never really even thought of it from that way. So, but we need to talk about that sometime on one of these. I know we talked about.
Long time ago, we talked about putting somebody on a bus, like some of those special ed aides or just aides that might be available, because they weren't getting paid the full amount. Especially when we did those early outs on Wednesday, they weren't getting the
Full hours.
Yeah, it would look like their salary was a certain amount, but it really wasn't that amount because they didn't ever get to work that many hours, but
Kind of like a bus monitor.
that just, yeah, and that just kind of died, it seemed like. Is there a need for
Well, only the transportation director would know that, I don't.
We've tried to get some people to get on for aid positions, but it's tough to find them. We've got one riding this year that on a bus, and it really helps to have somebody on there, but it's tough to find them.
It's such weird hours.
Okay, that's an interesting thought, yeah. Anything else, Tim? Chris, you got anything? Okay, Mike? Lisa? Okay. All right, well, Becca and Cameron, thank you for making the technology happen once again. I know you sit in here at all these meetings and we appreciate you keeping the flow going. So thank you for that. And thank you, all the principals for your reports and so forth, and please pass on to staff. We appreciate everything that's happening. I think too often we talk in here about the business of the district and not enough about student achievement. And I think we need to have some more work sessions on some student achievement. So thank you for your reports, and then, Tom, pass on thanks to Kate for getting the packets out to us, and to you and Lisa for getting everything ready. Thanks for the agenda, and Lisa, the unsung hero of the meeting minutes. So I couldn't do that job, so I'm glad that you do that. So thank you very much. So with that, thank you, everybody, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
Motion is second to adjourn. All signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed? Turn off the lights.
Spend some time.